here we go. I'm gonna try my hand at this instructional video making. What I am going to attempt is to get this rear bumper off of my F-150 and make the metal sections there on the bottom. I will skin them in camo carbon fiber. I'm going to start off with cleaning and disassembly. This video will probably be super choppy, and I'll try to get it as professional as possible and get you every step that I can. I'm also going to make these instructions really vague so that they will go with anything that you're wanting to do. So any piece that you want, you should be able to follow these instructions and come up with similar results. I am just a normal guy. This isn't my first time, but I am still new to this, so anybody that knows more than I do, I'm sure you're going to find faults. So let's see how this goes. Alright, so we got the disassembly part of it done, so that we're just working with the pieces that we are wanting to have covered in the carbon fiber material. The next step is going to be to remove any of the dirt that may be remaining, even though it may have been clean that you thought, but get it all super clean. Even the parts that you don't necessarily think you're going to wrap in the carbon material, you still want that clean because it will later be important, because we don't want to have a bunch of contaminants ending up in our finished product. So clean the inside, clean the outside, remove any of these little clips. Of course, I'm going to remove these decals, clean off all the mud. Both of these will be cleaned inside and outside. I'll remove that little sticker just because. But when I get ready, the next phase is going to be to have this thing super clean, and then we will start to prep the surface. So make sure that in this step, everything needs to be, when you're done, pretty much ready to sand and be nice and clean. Alright, so I got these parts all peeled and all the stuff taken off of them. Got it all cleaned up, all the little ridges and nooks and crannies, and clean the backside real good. That way we don't get any other debris or dirt or anything in our next steps. We're gonna still need to sand these and get them prepped, so you don't really have to worry about little nicks and scratches and stuff, because we're gonna cover it in some resin that should fill in all of those little minor nicks and dings and scratches for the most part. So something like that you should probably sand a little bit smoother. The resin may not, because we're just going to put a thin coat, may not fill that in, but all these little tiny scratches and stuff, they'll all get filled in, and all that stuff. So I'm going to sand these, get them just scuffed up. Doesn't have to be awesome, just scuff it up so that the resin has something to stick to and to grab on. Alright, so I'm going to do that step, and then I'll turn it back on. Alright, so I've scuffed the surface. I've gotten it pretty well flat, pretty well scuffed up. You want to make sure to go past where you're actually going to be covering. If you remember, when this thing was assembled, it only went to here, and so I'm going to go clear up to right over this top edge here, so that you don't see any edge for any reason. I'm also going to wrap it around these corners or around these edges here. So I've also scuffed up under these edges in here so that when it wraps in, it's got something to stick to. So we'll be applying a black resin over the top of all of this, so all of this will be hidden, and I've done that to both sides. So I've gotten rid of all the deep scratches and just gotten it nice and scuffed up so that the resin has something to latch onto. I've also already cleaned it really well with some water, and then I've also done another step that I didn't think you needed to see super closely, but I've also wiped it down with some alcohol to remove any grease or anything like that, so we don't get any reaction with any of it, which explains why I'm wearing the gloves. I also have pre-cut the piece of carbon fiber material. So it just needs to be a rough cut shape that when you put it over, it pretty much covers what you're trying to do. So you can see it goes to the edge and wraps over, goes to this edge, it'll go something like that. This goes something like this, all the way to the edge here, all the way down here with some room to go, so it can fold all the way under like this. And so I've done that with this one as well. I taped it this way so that you could see that you put tape on all the cut edges so that it doesn't fray on you. One end will have this factory sewn seam so that it doesn't come apart. If you don't tape it, then you would just have this open seam that all of this will start to fray if it doesn't have any tape. So all of these fibers will start sticking out. You don't want that. So this one goes something like this, and I'll show you why we are going to put a black resin over it. In case you don't already know, this fabric is see-through, so it is not very thick, and if you were to just put that down on top of here, you have the possibility of being able to see whatever's under it through it. So we put a black coat of resin, which I will mix up and show you guys how I do that in just a moment. But this is the stage that we're in now. We've got the parts prepped, we've got the pieces prepped, we're ready to mix up some resin and get it applied. Give me just a minute. All right. So I've gotten the area prepped, and I'm going to tell you that I can't stress enough how much being clean and from this point forward keeping your area clean and dust free and oil free and whatever else, just be as clean as you possibly can from this point forward. Anything you do will end up in your finished product, and you do not want that. So I have wiped these down one more time with alcohol right here, just regular old stuff from the local grocery store. Wiped them down. I put them on these buckets that I got from a local paint supply place. They were like $1 a piece. I like them. They're sturdy. You can turn them upside down. You can turn them the other way if you wanted it to drip into it. If you were doing something that was going to be super drippy and you didn't want to make puddles. So wipe it down, keep it clean, clean everything. So your cups, wipe your cup down before you use it, even though it's brand new. I've already wiped these all down with alcohol. They should be clean and dust free and as clean as it can be. This one as well, I've already wiped this one out with alcohol on the front or on the inside and the outside. I go as far to wipe my gloves with alcohol as soon as I get done wiping everything else down. I wipe the handle of the resin bottles so that I don't get it on my gloves, because sometimes you have to hold your piece or you know, do something. You might have to touch it and you don't want to transfer any contaminants from yourself onto your part. So I also, this is a bamboo stick, I wipe it down. It does a couple of things. One, it sort of deburrs it. I don't know if I can get that in the camera here. Oh, there we go. It sort of gets all the little fibers that would be on like the edges sort of hanging off. It makes it so that it's pretty smooth. And also oil-free, dust-free, that sort of thing, because this is going to go directly in your resin when you're stirring. So I'm going to take this silver tip epoxy, part A and part B. It is a 2-to-1, so you do twice as much of this as you do this. So you would measure it in grams. You don't want to just guess and go off of one of these cups and you know, say, well, I got the 2 mark here, I'll just fill it up to the 3 mark there. No, you need to be super precise. So you need to get one of these digital scales. I picked this one up at Target. I think it was 20 bucks. So you want to be super duper precise. You want to be super spot on. You want it to be exact. This is an exact thing. There's not really any leeway one or the other. You'll end up with a product in the end that is not what you desire. So you want to be super exact. This is the pigment I'm going to be using to turn what would be my clear resin. I'm going to make it black. It is a mixed ratio of 1 pigment to 32 parts resin. So do your math, figure out how much you need, do it in grams like you're going to measure everything else when we figure out. Also put your cup on the scale when you go to turn it on, or you can turn it on and zero it back out if you want, but you want it to be 0 with your cup, so that way when you pour your first resin in, you're not measuring the cup also. So same thing when you do the second one as well. Put the cup on, make sure it says 0 with the cup, measure out your second amount that you decide. This is totally dependent on the size of your project, how much you're going to be doing. It totally depends on how much of each that you need to run. So it's sort of a guessing game. I prefer to go to end up with some left over than to try to scrape the bottom of the cup. If I get to a part where I need some more resin to put on, I want there to be plenty and not have to scrape the bottom of the cup to get that last little bit. It tends to set up or get kind of weird in the cup at the very end. So over pour. You can always throw it away, but you don't want to end up applying the resin on any of these steps and run out, because then you have to scramble to try to mix some, and it takes a couple of minutes, and it's just a bad scenario. So always, if you're doing this for the first time, it's just a guess. So start with like 50 grams of this and 25 grams of that. That's what I'm going to attempt with these 2 parts. It should be plenty. I should have some left over. I'll show you. It's just going to be a super thin coat, just enough to sort of cover the surface. And we're not really trying to do anything except for sort of cover all of this up so that it's black, and also have a nice tacky surface to put our material on. So that's what I'm going to do now, is mix up my resin parts in my cups. You should use a 3-cup method for this one because we're going black. I'm just going to do it in 2 cups, but usually you would want to put part 1 in this one. You'd want to put part 2 in a different one of these, and then pour it into this cup and scrape this cup out completely. Scrape out the 2nd cup that would be here completely and put it in there, and then mix it all up. But at this time, I'm just going to choose to do this base coat like this from this point forward. I will be using 1 cup for part A, 1 cup for part B, and I will be mixing those in the 3rd cup. So I'm going to get that mixed up, and let's see what happens. All right. So I skipped ahead a little bit. I actually went inside and got distracted waiting on my black base coat to get set up. Thin coat, put it on. You wait until it gets tacky, where you put your finger down on it and it doesn't quite come off on your finger, but it's still quite sticky, where if you left it on there and scooted it around, you could probably pull some off if you wanted to, but under first touch it should be real sticky, so and not come off on your fingers. So then what you do is you get your piece that you already had pre-cut that gets pretty close, and you wrap it and sort of make sure that you're getting it around all your corners and down on your edges and stuff, and you let that set for just a little while, and then you're going to put your first coat of clear on this. And so this coat is going to be a super duper thin, just enough to sort of get the fabric just sort of wet. I mean, not even we're not even trying to make it glossy or flat or anything. So all we're doing is trying to get the top coat to sort of meld with the bottom coat, and sort of get it so that it all lays down nice and flat and is sort of glued together and stuff. So this camo material makes it difficult to tell if it's actually laying down in the grooves, because it has such a weird pattern to it that it looks like it's standing up in some parts. Like right here, it looks like it's standing up, but it's absolutely down in that crack where I needed it. And so as long as the pattern looks good, there are some benefits to this camo stuff, as you can you get away with some imperfections because it's kind of all imperfect. So if you're using a more perfect design, like the twill or some of the octagon stuff that Composite Envisions offers, you will have to be super precise on how you lay this down and which direction you have it, and any pieces you may need to sort of put in there. And so I'm going to try a couple of things with this install that I haven't before. Before I cut it, when I got here, I got to this point, I let it set up pretty good, and then I cut it pretty close and then put my clear coat on top. And I think I could have left it and just trimmed it a little bit easier if I had a lot more on there and not had to sort of wrestle it. So I'm going to try that. I'm also going to try this roller that I've never tried before. I think, at least in my mind, I think when I'm rolling it on here, I'm hoping that it's going to get down in those fibers, more so than it would with a traditional brush. And so I'm hoping to get it in there, get out as much air as I can. You know, the base coat, we didn't have to really worry about that so much because we're getting it, we're covering it up. I did, although, heat it up pretty good with my heat gun here and got, you know, most of the stuff out, mostly due to my OCD. So I will continue with my super duper light clear coat that is going to sort of lock this in, and then I'm going to let it sit for about 24 hours, and then I will come back and we will do another coat. So I will do the coat, and then I'll let you know when I come back. I'll show you where that is at, and then we'll put the next coat on, and I'll show you how that one goes. So these are going to be thin, thin, thin. All right.